crazy time.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and as usual I'll be chatting with a musician who's going to tell me all about what makes her work contribute to a more harmonious world. For this episode I'm chatting with Kim Cypher, who is a tenor sax player and singer. What you're listening to right now is Trempos Locos, which is the Crazy Times dance remix from Kim's latest album, Catching Moments. And this actually features friend of the show, Ashley Slater, on trombone. All of the 12 tracks on this album are influenced by world and personal events in the last few years. And it's all about catching the precious moments in life, which we all need to do a bit more. I hope you enjoy listening to my conversation with Kim Cypher. Welcome to Harmonious World. I'm joined by Kim Cypher, whose new album Catching Moments is out now. Hi, Kim.
Hello. Yes, very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you for joining me. And as we were saying in the casual bit before we started recording, we sort of know each other online, and I've been aware of you as a fellow sax player for quite some time. So it's really good to have you on the podcast.
Oh, absolutely. And I always love chatting to a fellow saxophonist. So I'm sure we've got tons of things to talk about.
Well, absolutely. Not least of which is mutual friends, because I have realised that Ashley Slater is on this album with you playing trombone.
Yeah. Oh, is he a mutual friend?
Yeah, he's a very good friend. I've known Ashley for more years than either of us would care to mention.
Oh, no, Ashley Slater is amazing. So, yes, obviously he is a great mutual connection, and I'm absolutely delighted to have him feature on the album because, I've been a huge fan of Ashley's, forever, really.
Yeah. He's a proper muso. He's a musician, isn't he? Whatever he does, whether he's singing or playing trombone or arranging stuff or band leading, it's all about the music.
Absolutely. And I can't speak highly enough of Ashley, actually, because, not only is he a wonderful musician, I love his creativity. I love his passion, his style. But as well, something really important for me is that, he is just the nicest person to work with. He bends over backwards to do a good job. He's so supportive. He's just, the perfect person to work with, really.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anyway, enough about Ashley. He'll get big-headed.
Yeah, that's enough about Ashley.
Tell me about this album, Catching Moments. When did you start writing the tracks?
Well, it's been a labour of love for a long time, about 4 years in total, because I started writing some pieces of music way back in what seems like a lifetime ago now, back in 2020 before the pandemic struck. And I composed basically just a couple of sort of standalone tracks for various projects, one of which was a fundraising project for the Brain Tumour charity, which is very close to my heart. And it was a piece of music I'd written in dedication of my late mum. And it kind of started there. And what happened was I did a big fundraising event at London's Pizza Express in Soho to launch that track and to raise more money for the charity. And I had special guest Ray Gelato join me for that gig, which was a wonderful gig. But it was really strange because it was literally, we were on the edge of lockdown. We didn't realise this pandemic was going to be as huge as it was. And literally that night, Ray Gelato and his band members, they were flying from a tour they'd been doing abroad, and it was touch and go whether they were actually going to get there for the gig. And it was also touch and go whether the gig was going to be cancelled, but it didn't. It went ahead, but literally as soon as that gig was done, we were plunged into lockdown. And that kind of stopped me in my tracks because I'd had this one track written, and then all of a sudden there was nothing, all the gigs stopped, everything stopped. And then it was kind of a journey, really, I think, over the next sort of year or two, trying to survive the pandemic, writing lots of music because I had a lot of emotions going on, feeling very passionate about people working in the arts business because we were all in a dreadful position of sort of losing our livelihoods, losing our identity. And that whole thing kind of shaped, all this music, which basically turned into what is now Catching Moments, an album.
Yeah. Well, and it does seem to be an album where your emotions are all over the place, which I think is true of how we have been for those last 4 years it is now.
Well, I think that's basically it. And I mean, the reason I called it Catching Moments is that I realized over those 4 years, I had literally been catching moments. Some of them were amazing moments. Some of them were very sad moments. Some of them were reflective moments, feeling like I needed reassurance, positivity. There was a lot going on in the world, and also there was a lot going on in my own personal life as well, because I lost my dear dad as well during the pandemic, and so there was a lot going on. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It takes you on a journey of every single emotion, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you've got Ray Gelato on here, haven't you, as well as Ashley, and indeed Leanne Carroll as well.
I know. I mean, honestly, I have to pinch myself with this album because all of those people that you've mentioned are people that I have admired for years and years and years. For me, they are the people that are doing such a great job for the arts, they're heart and soul performers. And this is what I wanted the album to be about, being a celebration of those amazing musicians, those people that literally put their heart and soul into what they do and provide this wonderful music and entertainment for everybody.
Yeah, one of the other projects I'm working on, well, it's sort of linked to Harmonious World, is I'm writing a book about the experiences of musicians during lockdown.
Oh,
And
right.
because I think we shouldn't forget it,
Mm,
because
mm,
it had a devastating impact on many people's livelihoods, but also on their mental health. And I think just as we we valued the National Health Service workers during
mm.
lockdown, I think to a large extent people realized that sort of the entertainment industry, how much we bring to people and how much that was not possible during the
No,
lockdowns.
absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think up until that point, we'd all kind of taken it for granted. Even me, even fellow
Yeah.
musicians, we just took it for granted that it was something that happened. And it was only when it stopped that we were like, oh, okay, hang on a minute. But, for me, lockdown was so mixed because although it was devastating, it was also so wonderfully positive as well because, we had this community on social media. I mean, I used to go live with my husband every day for a coffee and chat session just to keep in touch with people, make sure everybody was doing okay. And it kind of brought everybody together into this really kind of tight knit community, which was a real positive, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the time it was difficult for us to say that there were positives because there were people who were dying,
Mm,
as a direct result of COVID, and because of that they weren't getting the attention, or the care and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's only now that with hindsight we can talk about the benefits of that time. And I think for a lot of people, their creativity came because they suddenly weren't jumping on planes to go and travel and tour the world.
mm. Well, I think, on that note, one of the other positives that came out of COVID was having time because, in the job that we do and in everybody's life, really, having time to do things is a big challenge.
Yeah.
And, so for me, I actually really enjoyed that part of the pandemic, having that time and also slowing things down because before the pandemic, my husband and I, we were out gigging maybe 20, 23 times a month. It was really
Yeah.
hectic, and it's like, how do you get out of that? Because you're self-employed, you keep taking the work, you need the work. And it's only when somebody stops you that you suddenly realize, oh, okay, I could actually live a bit more calmly, which we are now, to be honest. We haven't really gone back to that full hectic schedule that we had
Yeah.
before. So
No,
it's a
that's
good
right.
thing.
Yeah. One of my favorite tracks on this album, and I'm going to play an extract from it in a minute, is Gonna
Mm.
Be All Right, which is one of the two cover versions. And now this is your vocals.
Oh, well, that's interesting because that is actually an original track of mine.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
You know what? That's really that you should take that as a compliment then.
Well, I am. Yes, I have taken that as a compliment. So thank you.
It's a
But no,
fabulous track.
oh, thank you so much. And I'm really glad you said that because it's kind of a track that's one of my favorites too. And it kind of not falls by the wayside, but it kind of sometimes gets a bit overshadowed by some of the other tracks. And so I'm really, really thrilled that it's one of your favorites and that you thought it was a cover version.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I wrote that track to give myself reassurance because I needed one day just to sort of tell myself, do you know what? Right, it's going to be all right. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through it, somehow. And we did. So that's really, where that track came from.
Yeah, and the production of it is very stripped back, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's kind of inspired by Grover Washington. So it's got that sort of smooth kind of vibe about it as well.
Yeah. For the sake of my listeners, can you give me a potted bio of how you've got to where you are now today, musically?
Oh, well, it's been a long story, but I mean, myself and my husband met through music when we were 15. We've always had music in our life. We both, in previous lives, had professional careers. I was a head of music in a primary school, and my husband was a regional bank manager. So we kind of went down that path. So we came into the world of being professional jazz musicians a little bit later. And that was one day when we both decided something had to go because it was all getting too much. And whilst everybody said, well, you need to give up the music, we were like, well, we're not giving up the music. We're going to give up our secure, financially well-paid jobs with company car and private health. And we're going to be professional jazz musicians. And it was the best thing we did because although it was very, very scary and obviously we had to make sacrifices, along the way, we set ourselves this challenge of surviving, and we set ourselves goals, things like performing at Ronnie Scott's, performing in New York, releasing albums of my own music, and we just got on and did it basically with sheer hard work and determination, to be honest. And here we are today, still, absolutely loving what we do.
Fantastic. That's great. That's such a good story and such a sort of hopeful story. I think the fact that It is hard. The music industry is a hard industry,
Mm.
and I think the fact that as you say, you're at the point where you are playing Ronnie Scott's, you are releasing albums of your music, so that's great.
Yeah, yeah, and it's an interesting one because I think even myself, I was naive as to how hard the music industry is. And, we gave up professional high flying careers, so we were both working our socks off in our careers. But I have to say that we have never worked so hard as we do now as professional musicians. And, it's an interesting one because it's a bit like the swans gliding on the water, isn't it? People see you at a gig, at a show, and they see this wonderful, band creating this wonderful music. It's all happy, it's all smiley and jolly, and it's wonderful. And behind the scenes, to get to that point, so much has to happen, and it's literally a kind of relentless treadmill of work,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it really is. But we do it because we love it, and that's why I love, that's why I wanted to celebrate musicians and creative people, because I absolutely love and take my hat off and have huge respect for people that are creative, that work in the arts, because fair play to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I, review albums and I interview people and stuff, and I never cease to be amazed by the determination and the hard
Mm,
work of
mm,
people who are just doing what they enjoy doing and
yeah.
producing such great creativity in so many different ways.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, it is a labor of love, isn't it? It's in your heart and in
Yeah.
your soul. And I find it because with my own mental health, if I'm not creating, I become quite sort of withdrawn and quite sad. I need to create, but it's a very difficult one because in this business, it's very hard to make money out of your creations. You
Yeah.
know, producing an album, costs a fortune. And how do you get that money back? And every time I do a creative project, it's like, okay, well, how are we funding this? But luckily, I've kind of realized that, we do this creativity because that's what we do, and we
Yeah.
love it. And yeah, and we need people to do it.
We certainly do.
Mm.
Well, thank you. Honestly, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, Kim. So
And you.
tell my listeners where they can see you or hear you playing next.
Well, so actually, I mean, we did an album preview at Ronnie Scott's, and we did an album launch in my hometown of Cheltenham because I wanted to launch my album, locally. But we are heading to London on the 11th of November. If anyone would like to join us for what is going to be the first of my album tour gigs. So it's going to be a great night at the Pizza Express in Soho. So a fantastic jazz club, one of my favourite jazz clubs in
Yeah,
London.
it's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I know there are some tickets left, not loads, but there are some left. So if people want to come then on the 11th of November, I've got a great band. I've even got a special guest guitarist coming all the way from America, my good friend BD Lenz, who's joining us for that special night as well. So, and then beyond that, people can just check my
Yeah.
website, kimcypher.com, and I'm on all the socials, as you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, lots going on.
That's fantastic. Well, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Kim, and I hope to catch up with you at some point in real life.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much, Hilary. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm delighted that you invited me along. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me once more for Harmonious World, and that was a lovely conversation with Kim Cypher. What you're listening to now is Tomorrow's Song. This was recorded live with Leanne Carroll. So do catching moments where you can. You can get hold of it through Kim's website, and all the links are on the show notes. Thank you for joining me once more for Harmonious World. Please do look at the offers I've got on for subscribing. You'll be able to get some goodies if you subscribe to help me out with Harmonious World. But in any case, thank you for listening.
We are soaring over darkness. We are climbing our way to the light. good times are now in our side. Longing for tomorrow, longing for the door. We can't touch tomorrow. A brand new horizon is yours. A new way of living is born. A brand new tomorrow has dawned. Do dee do 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 down 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 do do. But it did do dee do 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 do.
Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.